Let's see here. Shri Ganeshaya Nama. As we are continuing our daily satsang, it is such a blessing for me to have this opportunity to actually be able to go through this process myself of being able to go through some of the great ideas in the Sanatana Dharma tradition. So as we are contemplating further into the different yogas, I wanted to go a little bit further into the interconnection among the yogas. As we know, there are many different yogas, and yoga is actually the correct pronunciation. It is just a connection process. So the fact is, each human being is attempting to connect into a state that we call ananda. Ananda is a state of constant joy. But we are living in the body, with this body, we're living in a world that is changing, and the attempt to find the permanent joy, constant joy from the impermanent world and the impermanent body is a futile effort. Nobody can find that which is eternal by getting trapped in the temporary. See this point? Can we perceive that the world is changing and temporary? I think we know that. We can perceive that. We can see it very clearly. But when we see that clearly, it is from that vision that the internal desire to connect with God awakens. That vision is the basis, actually, because if this world was just permanent, everybody was just happy and joyful, and there's no pain, no suffering, no difficulty, nothing is there, no need to eat food, no need to do it. You're just living in a very blissful state forever. Well, that's not this world. There may be a world like that beyond this, but this is not this world, at least. So, the word mumukshutvam means the desire, the burning desire for liberation. That is called mumukshutvam in Sanskrit. Now, how can that desire be awakened? Or can that desire be awakened within individuals who do not see bondage? To perceive bondage clearly is the beginning of the development of what is called mumukshutvam. Adi Shankaracharya Ji, Adi Jagadguru Shankaracharya, he has stated in Vivek Chudamani the following verse: Durlabam trayamevetat devanugraha hetukam manushyatvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha saushraya. What does that mean? That what is rare in life, he's asking. We tend to think that diamonds are rare, rubies are rare, a lot of wealth is rare, maybe name, fame, achievement is rare. Sure, those things are rare. Even sometimes just a healthy body all the way through one's life, that may be rare. So what Adi Shankaracharya Ji is saying is that what is truly rare are three things. One is even obtaining the human body. The Jivatma goes through the cycles of different yonis, different birth and death. Sometimes becomes a devta, sometimes a manusha, sometimes something else, some lower species, whatever. And then it gets a human body. So this human body itself is extremely rare. Just to realize that is a big, massive thing in itself. That, my God, what I have here, this body, this is something extraordinary. What am I to do with it? How can I use it for my evolution? So this is first thing that is rare. But more rare than that, for all those who have a human body, the second thing that is rare is mumukshutvam. The burning, intense desire to be liberated from the fire of the sansar. ये संसार एक ऐसी बात है, it is a अग्नि जिसमें there are countless jivas that are being crushed inside the sansar. And I'm just saying this very openly. I wouldn't use this kind of direct language with the general public as such, because people are not ready to hear that. They might say, well, wait a minute, what does that mean? It requires some background to understand. Just to perceive that the sansar is a phenomena where life form after life form is being crushed within it. Think of birds, for example. Think of other animals. They're living in fear. Their constant fear is there. They're living with a sense of just trying to find food day in and day out. How much rest do they get? A little bit at night, and maybe they reproduce a little bit. Ahar, maithun, bhai, nidra. 4 things are there in the species. Ahar, eating food. Maithun, sexuality. Bhai, fear, and nidra. Now, how is that not a prison? This sansar a tremendous jail hai. It is a massive jail. And everybody within it, almost everybody, doesn't know that it's a jail. इसीलिए सद्गुरु की कृपा होनी चाहिए. That's the third part that is durlabh. Durlabham trayame veta devanugraha hetukam manushyattvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha samshrayaha. The third part Adi Shankaracharya Ji is saying is that the contact with the Mahapurushas, which we have now through internet and through physically in thousands of ways, we have everything open to us. That's the biggest krupa actually. Anything we want, we can find. We have that technology available. So the Mahapurushas are there. Now, what is a Mahapurusha? Who is a Mahapurusha? So the Mahapurusha is different from an ordinary human being. The Mahapurusha is one who has realized the nature of the sansar as it is not hating the sansar, is not against the sansar. It is a realization of its nature. Its nature is what? What is the nature of the sansara? The nature of the sansara is that it is changing, it is temporary. Whatever sukha is in there has usually dukh inside it. Sukh dukha ka dvand hai. And it is something which people are running after because of the forces within. We are still living within it. But at the same time, the nature of the sansar is that it reasserts itself and keeps binding the individual. जिसको माया का बंधन कहते हैं. माया का बंधन ऐसा है, somebody tries to get away from Maya, it binds you more. It binds you in another way. I'll tell you a little story. There's a story of Bhartuhari. Do you know who he is? Bhartuhari, I don't know if you know, he was a king actually. It's a very interesting story. How he actually got Vairagya. I'll tell you a little interesting story. You may have heard this before, I'm not sure, but I'll tell it anyway. So, it's interesting. Bhartuhari was a king, quite wealthy and so much vaibhav, everything was there. He had a queen, but he was not able to have a child. The queen was not able to conceive a child. He wanted to have an heir to the kingdom. That is Raja Bhartuhari. So then, one time a rishi came into the kingdom and checked in with him and see what's going on. So he prayed to the rishi. He said, Gurudev, please give Ashirvad, give something so that my wife can actually conceive. We need something, but we tried everything, nothing is working. We need some spiritual intervention here. So the rishi says, okay, I'll give you a fruit. He did some puja with it, like a mango or some kind of a special fruit, or some mantra ki hai usme, or Bhagwan ko pratna ki. And he said, you give this fruit to your wife, and she will definitely get a lot of health and a lot of benefit from it, and it has a lot of spiritual power. Give it to the most beloved person who is within you. So he gave it, he bowed down to the rishi, and he took that fruit and gave it to his wife. Now, this is interesting. The wife got the fruit. She should have eaten it, right? But what did she do? She said, wait a minute, this fruit should be given to who it has so much benefit. Let me give it to who I love the most. So she was actually involved with a minister, like romantically involved with a minister. So she gave the fruit to that guy. This is actual historical fact. And then that fruit was given to the minister. that minister was thinking, who should I give this fruit to? Maybe I want to give it to my beloved. He was involved with a prostitute. He gave the fruit to a prostitute. Pingala was her name. And then that prostitute was thinking, who in the world is most beloved to me? And she gave the fruit to the king. He was involved with her. And then the king got so much disturbed by the whole thing. He said, I want to find this chain, how this fruit came back to me. And then he realized that nobody belongs to anybody. Ye sab maya ka khele, ahankar ka khele, vasna ka khele. And then from that, Bhartruhari left the kingdom. He went into the forest and became a great rishi because of that incident. And Bhartruhari has written one of the most extraordinary series on Vairagya. It's called Bhartruhari's Vairagya Shatakam. Very, very beautiful Sanskrit verses are written, and he's considered to be one of the great sages of India too. All because of a fruit that got transferred this way. It's an amazing story. So, what does it show? It shows what is this sansar. We think people are loving us and this and that. Wait until difficulties happen, problems happen, this happens, that happens. That's one thing. But even if those things are not there, actually it has to do with ego. What I want from you. But those who are living not in that me space, but living in the we space, that we are together, not what you can do for me, what we can do for each other, how we can benefit together, progress together. That is Adhyatma. Otherwise, the sansar is only this. There is actually a statement in one of the scriptures called Gopalan Swami Nivato in Gujarat. It was a saint called Gopalan Swami in Gujarat. And he has written that the ant has an ego. Think about the ant's ego. The ant's ego all the way up to Shri Brahmaji. Brahmaji is a form of God, of course, but he's a Ishvara, But there's an incident about that also. Meaning what? There is a whole range of this ego. From the ant, which is a tiny little ant. Ant has the same ego as an animal, as a human being, as a devta, all the way up to Brahmaji. So there's a story of Brahmaji. One time, Brahma is not the Brahman, that infinite, that's the absolute. Brahma Vishnu Shiv, the creator Brahma, who came from the Nabhi Kamal of Sri Vishnuji. So one time, Brahmaji was sitting around, in his Brahmalok, and he's thinking, what? I'm getting tired of doing all this. This is all getting boring. This position that I'm in, this is all getting like a boring position for me. So he goes to Bhagwan Vishnu and says, "Oh Lord Vishnu, this position, this is not for me anymore because I'm just tired of doing all this utpatti and all these people are coming and going and all this mess is there in this sansar. I just don't want this anymore." He got frustrated. So then Bhagwan Vishnu showed him, "Do you know where you are right now?" He said, "Yes, I'm the Brahma, that was created." But he said, "Do you realize what is awaiting if you leave?" So he kind of opened up Brahma's vision and showed that there were 1 million Brahmas waiting, 1 million others waiting in line for that position to do that seva. So then Brahma said, "Oh no, it's okay. I'll stay here. I'll be happy to stay here." This is like this. This whole sansar is like this, because the ability to go outside the ego space is what doesn't even happen even all the way up to Brahmaji. Brahmaji is not in Maya really, in that traditional sense, but it's a charitra hota hai. There's all these different lokas and all this thing from an ant, or take a bacteria if you want, or even a virus particle, all the way up to Brahmaji. There is the entire flow of the ego current all the way through. That's why in one of the kirtans it said, "Pinda Brahmanda se Paranisha Atma, Jani ke mama gunagave, soi jana santakaha." Means what? This pinda is this limited body. Brahmanda is there. Beyond both is the Atma. Because the Jivatma is revolving within the Brahmanda. So all of these yogas, Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Tantra Yoga, all sadhana, the attempt is to break out of the Brahmanda, not to come back into any part of the Brahmanda, to get out. Now think about the level of the rishis. We are thinking about our little lives. Most people, we don't have no knowledge that of this sansar and its binding nature. Iska bandhan itna hai. Now, I'll give you another little reference. There is a chapter in the Mahabharata called Moksha Dharma, and that is a discourse between Bhishma and Sri Krishna, I believe. And I have to double check who that discourse is between. But in there, it is written that these Swarga Lokas, these heavenly Lokas, are actually like hell compared to the divine abode of God. जो भगवान का जो आनंद है, ये जो स्वर्ग का आनंद है, ये नरक तुल्य है. Compared to where we are, that Swarg looks like everything is a supreme. Even if somebody goes to Hawaii, it looks like, my God, this is the most extraordinary place. Hawaii is nothing compared to one part of Swargaloka. Think about that. This is the gradation. So, ये जो आनंद की जो बात है, आनंद is beyond the Brahmanda. Satchidananda. And within the Brahmanda is Sukh and Dukh. In Swarga, there is all Sukh. There's hardly any. The Dukh in Swarga is that you get pushed out of Swarga, back into the Mrityu Loka. Kshinya Punya Mrityu Loke Vishanti. Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita says, once the Punya is finished in the Swarga, guess what? You get absolutely thrown right back into the Garbhavas again. Into the Sansara, into the Mrityu Loka and all the pains and problems and all that mess that is there. Think about it. Think about a baby that is born. We say happy birthday to the baby. That's fine. We should say happy reincarnation day. You're back again. Let's figure it out why you're back again. Think about that. If we really understand this, and which is the most difficult thing to really even internalize, but if it's internalized, a human being would not waste 1 second in any nonsense activity and would keep their attention on the Paramatma. Ananyas chintayanto mam, Bhagavad Gita. Keep attention on God. Because everything here, nobody is ours, nothing is ours, nothing is going to come with us, and whatever we think is ours and yours, this is all just a game. That's all it is. Yes, love is a different matter. Kutum mein bhi sab real prem hota hai, that's a different, wo divyata hai. Usme, but ye jo tasal jo hota hai, this back and forth and all this grabbing of money and position and this and that, all that mess that is there, that has nothing to do with spirituality, and that is why humanity suffers. So the technology of living a beautiful life here and having moksha, that is the technology of the Sanatana Dharma. So Adi Shankaracharya Ji, when he says, Durlabam Trayameveta Devanugraha Hetukam Manushatvam Mumukshutvam Mahapurusha Samshraya, when one goes into the mumuksha state, one is living in the sansar, but one realizes that constant joy cannot be obtained by getting stuck in the limited activity of the sansara. Any activity in the sansara is limited. Doesn't matter what it is, except for the connection with the Paramatma. So the sansara exists. Why it exists? We can get stuck in it. That's one way to think. We can go do some punya and go to the Svargaloka. And the third reason for its existence is to completely transcend it and go into the God consciousness state. These are the three things only. So the sansar exists to go beyond. It does not exist to be trapped in. And this is a very difficult thing to really grasp. Why we are here? So we can evolve beyond, not to just be stuck here. And Sachin is not saying that. That is this declaration of every great scripture from India and the other religions also in their own way. The declaration has come that way because that is the realization of the rishis. The pain suffered in the Garbhavasa, in the reincarnation. It's described in Srimad Bhagavatam that the Jivatma remembers what had happened before and remembers why also he's back again into the Garbhavasa, into the womb of the mother, and prays to God to take him out of the Garbhavasa, and then when he or she comes out, will continuously worship God. But when comes back into the sansar, forgets that and is trapped again. So ye jo maya ka jo bandhan hai, it is the most incredible thing actually. Of course, we're living in the world. The world is not the problem as such. It is that we are, how can I say it? The internal engulfment by the world is the problem. And it's a problem because of suffering. We know who wants to suffer? We want ananda, but we know what is the body. Body is going to go one day. Body is like a cover only. It's like a bubble. That's all. But it's a vehicle. It's a durlabha also. It's very durlabham taram. The human body is so rare that if every moment is not spent in evolution, whether karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, even we're doing our job and all that, we do it all as a yoga, everything. And realize that that is to be done, but keep the mind uplifted. Otherwise, one will get stuck in the mud of the sansar. The lotus flower analogy, which you have seen. You've seen the lotuses, right? They blossom within the pond or within the mud. But not one particle of the mud is on the lotus flower. But it's rooted in the mud. So this mud is the sansar. We are rooted in the sansar, but we have to develop our lotus flower. That lotus flower is the Brahmasthiti. That lotus flower is the Atma Sakshatkar. That lotus flower is the freedom to live in the world without even one particle of the world's contamination damaging the inner space. ये तो आपकी सबको कृपा है that Sachin can speak this openly about all, because this is not a subject that can be discussed with hardly anybody. But it requires really some background and foundation to be able to even grasp some of these ideas, simply because it's too strong. If you start saying how to develop your lotus flower, we can develop it, but one must realize that this sansar is the mud, but not to hate the sansar. Take from it what is needed to build the lotus flower. And also serve the sansar. It is not to damage the sansar. Just like the root is taking whatever nutrients it needs, it leaves everything else alone. Also the bumblebee that takes what it needs from the flower and makes the honey. It's like that. So these are some of the most beautiful ideas from our scriptures. There's nothing really hard about it. It's actually very simple. It's nothing really hard. And once we recognize the beauty of living this kind of a beautiful life, a wonderful life that is a spiritually enlightened life, then the vision opens up. That is called jnana. Jnana yoga is what, after all? It is a vision that just keeps opening further and further, and there's joy in that. There's an ever increasing opening of the vision. That is a joy in that. And every yoga has its own joy that way. All right, so we'll talk more about this later on. Let's continue forward. Okay, so again, these are just some other ideas here about that. Skip through all this for now. Okay, and then as we are moving, again, this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam idea, this notion that we are together, it takes us out of the polarities of the sansar. And it puts us into such a beautiful space that there is a heart, within our heart, all of existence begins to live within that. That is a real Sadguru. So again, in this verse that we have been contemplating, another angle here for the word Kevalam, Brahmanandam Paramasukadam, Kevalam Gnanamurtim, Dvandatitam Gagana Sadrusham, Tattvamasyaadi Laksham, Ekam Nityam Vimalavachanam, Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam, Bhavatitam Triguna Sadgurum Tam Namami. Again, the word Kevalam. Kevalam means single-pointedness. One who has so much mumukshutvam and has realized, can live in the world, live with the family, live with everyone and everything, but also realize this Atma belongs to the Paramatma. And everybody is an Atma. So then everybody is part of the family. That is the evolved state. Otherwise, one, of course, will say, this is my small family. Okay, that's good. That's also there. That also needs to be very much in sync. And I think we have talked about it before. Unless we can fix our family and our personal issues, how we will get to these things? We'll keep getting stuck over here, getting stuck at the body-mind level. So to fix that, this word Kevalam is there that says, recognize that the Paramatma is real, keep attention on that Paramatma day in and day out, day in and day out. Eventually, the right relationship with the sansar occurs. Sansar is there as it is. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, Asanga Shastrena Dridena Chitva. He says it's the upside down tree, Ashwatha tree, and you cut this tree out of the mind with the axe of Vairagya. With the axe of Asangatva. Asangatva means, think about it this way, go into nature, into a park, and bring about that realization, nobody belongs to me. This is, any time this Atma can go into the super consciousness. Who belongs to who? That is asangatva. And then along with that, everybody belongs to me. That is the Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya is essentially on these 2 points. Nobody belongs to me and everybody belongs to me. But if I say only these 500 people belong to me, I put a boundary around who belongs to me, I'm gone. Then I'm inside the sansar. Then Bhagwan will say, stay happily inside this jail as long as you want, no problem. You can freely stay inside there because you cannot come out of it otherwise. Impossible. The word Dvandatitam is exactly about this. All these dualities we have created, even in religious organizations, even with all the gurus and so many people, they want to try to get out of it, but they get stuck in another way. Because the one organization versus another, one idea versus another, one approach versus another, they get stuck there. And then they wind up getting into raga and dvesha unknowingly. So the trap of Maya is so subtle that it captures one anytime. So the idea here, wherever we are, whatever life situation all of us are in, we can take a quantum jump. Like Chaitanya likes to use that expression, quantum, a lot. So taking a quantum jump into the Brahmic state, is that possible? Of course. In fact, that is the most straightforward thing. But that's the one thing that our ego never wants to do. Our ego wants to do everything except take that quantum jump into the Brahmic state. In fact, there's this almost like a little bit of a statement there that the ego wants to be present at its own funeral. The ego wants to be present at its own funeral. It never wants to diminish. So the Brahmic state is where the ego is given over to the Paramatma completely. And then the body-mind is used by God for service, for seva. It's not used with the ahankar of the ant. There's a story actually. One time one rishi was sitting with his shishyas in the Himalayas. And a row of ants, like 1,000 ants, little ants came into their ashram. So then that Guruji said, that Sadguru said to the Shishya, do you know who these ants are? He says, no, they're just ants. He said, you don't know, I'll tell you who they are. They were all Indras in their past lives. But because of all their attachments, now they've become ant again. Think about that. One may be very wealthy and strong and healthy, but when the ego kicks into play, that will bring one straight down again. That is the biggest problem. I'll tell you, one of the most difficult things in life, if someone is successful, to not allow that ego to grab hold of that success. ये बहुत difficult बात है. Sometimes it's easier to take blame than praise. जिसको हम कहते हैं कि मान और अपमान. हमारा कोई अपमान करे, maybe we can tolerate, but to handle praise is more difficult. वो बहुत difficult बात है. If somebody even makes one good comments about us, our brain actually generates that reaction. It starts releasing certain chemicals that say, wow, this is, it feels good. Definitely I must be something somewhere. 10 people are praising me. I must be some glow must be there somewhere. This kind of craziness goes on. My mind ka sab khel hai. It has nothing to do with spirituality at all. It is an illusion of spirituality. Aisi baat hai. So that's why we mention this again and again, because that illusion is so enticing that even so many sadhus and so many quote spiritual people get stuck in this thing. And that can happen. And then that really becomes a very refined form of Maya. So anyway, these are just for my own manan chintan. These ideas are there because if you go through the scriptures, you go through the history of religion, spirituality, and personal development, you find again and again people who have fallen down this way. Again and again. But even if someone falls down, doesn't matter. Resonate with this truth. Brahmanandam paramusukadam kevalam. That is who I am. And stay with that. And that is the Sadguru. So the Sadguru and who I am, you close the distance. We say, oh, Adi Shankaracharya is great. But are you a fool? Adi Shankaracharya is telling you are also the same. No. And that's the whole point, that I am that and I'm the devotee of God. Bhakti ka bhi point उसमें लेना चाहिए. So when that happens, now that beautiful resonance is there, and the progression continues further. Otherwise, ये सब माया का चक्कर, it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But we have a beautiful opportunity. Every day we come back, we are in this world. Each day is an opportunity to realize that I am the Brahman. I am Paramasukadam. I am Gnanamurti. I am beyond the dualities. I am the infinite consciousness. I am that being. Tattvamasyadi Laksham. I am Tattvamasi. I am Atma Brahma. All that I am. Not the limited ego, but that I am, not this ego. This ego is a functional ego, that's all. And this functional ego is given over to God. Bhagwan ko samarpit karna. You know how we do the havan, the ahuti, or hum pushpa offer karte, we do all these offerings. Why we're doing that? It's because it is an attempt to actually offer the ego to God. That's all it is actually. To do that one thing, all these other sadhanas are shown there. Including the pradikshina that is done in the temples and all that. All that any sadhana is done is only for only one purpose, to take the ego, is offered to the God, to say, God, Bhagwan, you are mine. Atma, I am the Atma. The ego's function begins to transmute this way. और ये सब भगवान की कृपा से होता है, सत्संग से होता है, और सब संत परंपरा जो real bona fide जो ऋषि जो हो गए, they have given this knowledge to the whole world and given this vision to the whole world. Otherwise, the world is as it is. काम, क्रोध, लोभ में ही सब धमाल चल रही है. That's all, Oh my God. Unbelievable stuff is there. Okay, so we are moving ahead into higher consciousness. These nadis are very interesting. ये जो सब नाड़ी का जो चक्कर है, this is a matter of realization. इसमें क्या है? इसमें भगवान की भक्ति मुख्य होनी चाहिए. By the grace of God, these things can be revealed. If they are not revealed, don't worry about it. Keep attention on the Paramatma. These are all intermediate stages. ये सब चक्र सब है ना, those are all intermediate stages into the realization of the Atma. Because Atma's light is lighting the chakras. Chakras are spinning vortices, energy centers. And if you go deep into meditation, it will appear. These things will appear. They can appear. It seems pretty fantastic as to what it is. It's quite mystical. But it is coming from the light of the Atma. And so they are lit by the light of the Atma. Remember that much. And by the grace of the Paramatma, this entire, all these blockages, granthis they're called, the knots, they begin to dissolve and get asunder. The most direct way is Dharma, Gnan, Vairagya, and Bhakti. The essence of all scriptures, when these four are combined together, then they come together. And Sajanand Swami Maharaj, who's known as Swaminarayan, he put that inside, extracted this idea from the Vasudeva Mahatmya scripture. It is the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, every scripture, every psychology book, everything that is needed for human transmutation into higher consciousness is in these four principles: Dharma, Gnan, Vairagya, and Bhakti. Everything is rolled up within that. We're moving into higher consciousness. Remember always, this left part of this diagram, that energy is to be kept whole. The 12-sided figure here is the dodecagon. That is the 12 aspects of our one life, 12 dimensions. Keep them intact without being pulled apart. And that really goes back to what we were saying. We see the nature of the sansar, and by seeing it, the energies come. One doesn't react to the sansar, one recognizes it for its nature, and that is jnana. It is not a reaction against the sansar. To be against the sansar is another trap. That is as entrapping as to be just running after the sansar. It's not to be against it and not to be running after it, to just be in a state of awareness of it and recognize the waves of sansar that are going on without hyperindulgence or suppression. Okay, so now we'll go into the 108 names of Bhagwan Shiv, and then we'll continue from there.